Welcome to another edition of Sales TV Live. Today, we're trying to understand the role and impact of leadership in sales success. I'm joined by Lori Richardson. Lori is a renowned B2B sales and revenue growth strategist. Lori brings a wealth of experience and insights from her background starting as a BDR to now running her own consulting organization, Score More Sales. She also serves as a sales coach at Harvard Business School and contributes in numerous ways to the Women in Sales Pros organization. Lori, welcome.
Thank you. It's really great to be here.
Awesome. I'm also joined by my fellow co-hosts for Sales TV Live, Andy Huff and Adam Gray. Lori, please tell us a little bit about you, your journey into sales, and where you are today.
I got into sales a long time ago, and I was a teacher prior to that. So I became a young single mom, and my teaching salary wouldn't support my family. I thought about it, and I actually went through a non-traditional program for women, and ultimately decided when the guy came in to talk about technology, I was just fascinated. And I had grown up in a family-run business. My grandmother had a women's apparel store in Seattle, where I grew up. And I thought, maybe I can sell technology. And so I got into the early days of personal computers when we were going to replace computers, which in companies were big mainframes and mini computers. And we wanted to put personal computers on every desk. And growing up near Microsoft and, the rise of that company around the same time, I really had a great experience in being in a very fast-paced industry with amazing people. And I continue to this day to work in tech, but also, beyond SaaS, working with other industries such as manufacturing and distribution and medical devices and so forth. So sales gave me a wonderful career, and it just a wonderful way to learn about companies and meet people.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So let's start off with a basic question. How does effective sales leadership directly impact sales performance?
I talk about leadership a lot because it's usually leadership's fault when there are big issues in a sales organization. And there's also a lot of credit due when things are going well. Leadership is so important because the leader sets the tone for the morals and ethics of the team, for the type of team we're going to have, for the expectations, the goals. And we can impact leadership, which can ultimately impact the reps. So I really like that kind of top-down approach in terms of helping to solve problems in a sales team.
Okay. You said leaders will set the ethics, but I thought that was HR's job.
I don't, it depends on how big of a company we're talking about. But when I'm thinking of the teams I've worked for, it's the leader that really sets the tone for how our team will be. Sure, their HR, their guidelines and rules and things like that. It doesn't mean people follow them in teams, and that's unfortunate in a lot of cases. But I want to work for a leader that I respect. I want to work for a leader that can teach me something. And I think everyone in a sales role should be in that position where the people above them can teach them, unless their role is to be the teacher and to help impart wisdom to those on their team.
Lori, what would just backing up? What I'm really interested. How would you define effective sales leadership?
Well, I would define it that we've created a plan, we've created a process, we have metrics, we follow them. We're doing our best to hit our numbers. A lot of people haven't hit their numbers this year, but we're trending that way, or we've hit them and exceeded them. And if we have problems, leadership will listen and help refine and fix things. I don't know. How would you define it, Andy?
I think some of those are great. I think the answer is brilliant, by the way, Laurie. I think those are. I loved what you said before: the ethics, the standards, the leadership, the morals. That's the bit. You had me at hello for want of a better way of looking at it there. I always think there's some leaders who are doing what you're talking about there, and some that are stuck in the past, doing what happened to them when they were 25. So I love what you were saying about, and I think adding to it, people looking over the horizon about what's next as well.
Well, you bring up a good point, because we rarely train our leaders, which is crazy in our industry, isn't it? We take the most successful seller and turn them into a manager, and then it goes from there. Then they become the VP over time, and it's strange to me, even after all these years, that I'm working with leaders who have never been through a solid sales leadership program or sales management program, or it was a long time ago. And we need to, in any role that we're in, we need coaching and we need support, right? Because it wears off over time.
Yeah, you're so right. It's
Just wanted to bring in a comment from the audience. Bob Britton says the number one reason people leave a company is due to their direct leader. I think we've all witnessed that in some way, shape, or form. So,
hello to Bob. And I would say, I had 23 sales managers, and I always say that some were awesome and some were awful. And that's how I learned to have my own sales contests. Like, I would have them with myself sometimes if I had a bad sales leader. And I wouldn't wait for my manager to tell me what to do. I became really motivated after having a couple of bad managers. You can't just put it on, well, management's bad, they're not helping me. It's like, okay, so you're not getting a good manager. What can you do besides that? And, create a contest, have some fun, do something with your peers, and we'll just work around them. And that's what I did. And typically that manager would move on in a short amount of time.
So along those lines, what are some key strategies for sales leaders to implement to foster high-performing teams?
I am one who wants to know what each person is made up of. In other words, I want to know about each person's competencies and their strengths. So I'm biased in that way. I've worked for a lot of years with some different tools and ways to measure competencies. And the first thing I want to know is whether or not they're coachable. If someone is not coachable, I'm really not interested in working with them. If they don't have the will to be successful, the skills don't matter. And I, not everyone likes sports analogies, but I happen to be a big sports fan, and I will use them sometimes. And I will say this is one case where if you have a very talented person on your sports team, whatever sport it is, and they disrupt everybody else, but they do the job and they're exemplary, you have to decide, is it worth ruffling everybody's feathers and ruining performance of the rest of the team for this one person? And that's why I think, or the other thing happens where they have the talent but they just don't apply themselves. And we want people who have that will, that desire, commitment to be the best that they can be, to do whatever it takes, ethically and morally, I would say, to bring opportunities to closure. And those are the people that we want on our teams. And so I think it's important to understand, the differences and where people's strengths are and where their gaps are.
You said you have some tools for screening that. What would you use to assess coachability?
Well, we have a series of tools that create the data that will show that, and it's through one is for looking at an existing sales team, at the people and processes, the pipeline, and the leadership. And another one is a hiring assessment process that we go through. So it's actually online questionnaire, predominantly, and then it's tailored to the role and to the company. So it's very customized in that way.
Okay.
But I will always go to something that, Mark Roberge, who is one of the professors at Harvard Business School and was the guy who helped build the HubSpot sales team originally. He has a good way to interview someone for coachability, and it's spelled out in his book that he wrote. And the name of it escapes me at this moment. It's a playbook, sales acceleration playbook or something like that. And he spells out how to take someone through a role play and then give them feedback and see if they take you up on it and if they alter their approach. And so that's a simple way to get some sense of coachability.
So you actually do the role play, you give them feedback on the spot, and then you do the role play again and see whether or not they've learned from that, or see whether they're still.
Yes.
That's really interesting way of doing things, isn't it?
Yeah, because you'll see it live, and some people will be uncomfortable to do a role play, but others will be like, well, okay, I'll take a shot at it, and it shows their willingness to take direction, to listen. And especially if you say, Adam, I noticed you presented this one way. What if this was a different scenario and this was the case? Now I want you to do it again. And some people will just push back and say, oh, I think once is enough, or, and that tells you.
I've been pitching it this way for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. And that tells a lot, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Alex Abbott shares a sports analogy I heard recently: deliberate practice used. And I love that. And I think I just heard that yesterday. I was listening to Adam Grant's latest book. That title is escaping me right now. But Alex goes on, if salespeople aren't practicing their skills regularly, how can they expect to improve? What are your thoughts on things salespeople can do to improve consistently?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the point that I started in my early 20s in sales, I joined Toastmasters so I could be a better presenter and speaker. I read every book I could get my hands on. And now with podcasts and, videos and so many things at our disposal online, many for free or very low cost, there's just no way you can't be a lifelong learner. And to me, that's what sales professionals are. We need to be lifelong learners because things change, people change, technology changes, as we're seeing now with AI and all the other things that are happening. And we must be on top of that. When a salesperson says that they know everything, I'm staying away from them.
So
That's fascinating. That. So go on, Adam.
No, I was just going to say, so one of the things that we end up talking about a lot on the show is the challenge that salespeople are currently under. So, there are lots of things that have traditionally worked in terms of generating opportunities and conversations are no longer working. So typically, huge numbers of salespeople are not achieving their number. There have been massive layoffs across many industries, simply that salespeople cannot get a foot in the door to begin to have a conversation with somebody. And one of the things that we've seen as an output from this is that salespeople are becoming increasingly scared to try new things. So yes, I completely agree that they should be learning, they should be evolving, they should be morphing to fit the current environment and the future environment. However, the sales leadership and the organization as a whole is often strangulating that and is saying, no, we expect you to do more of this activity which isn't working, evidenced by the fact you've got no pipeline. So doing more of it is not going to change that. Do something else would be the smart move.
Right.
And I think that increasingly we're finding that the worst thing you can possibly do in business is to make a mistake. Whereas it used to be the case that the making a mistake was part of your learning and the cost of your training, effectively.
Yeah.
And that's moved enormously, hasn't it? So how do salespeople embrace this need to change and reconcile that with the fact that they're often not allowed to?
Yeah, well, that goes back to my point at the very beginning when we talked about leadership. Your first job as a sales professional is to find a company where the person you're reporting to, your direct manager, is going to support you making mistakes, is going to support you learning, is going to support you with an open mind to new ideas. And that's upon you as a seller. If you are not in that environment, I would look around. I'd do whatever I could to find leadership that would support what we need in sales, which we need to make mistakes. We need to learn. We need to keep trying things. If we don't try things and change things up, we're not going to find ultimate success. We are going to keep doing what we do, Adam, and it's going to be disastrous.
Absolutely, but as an industry, how do we create that reality? Because like this learning, the make mistakes, try and try again, that's not a fashionable way to act these days, it would seem.
Well, and it also used to be that there was so much money floating around that you could make mistakes and nobody really cared. And so that was the first problem, is that we all took it for granted that there was more money than ever, wherever we were, and that we could screw up and it would be okay. So it's not like that anymore. And now the good salespeople are rising to the top, and the good management and leadership is rising to the top too. So I just say, for me personally, I would find leadership that supports that. And I know leaders, there's some amazing, great leaders in all different industries that we work in that do that. So, if anyone's questioning, reach out to me and I'll give you some names. But I won't do that publicly, but I'd be happy to do that. And, as an industry, we're going to have to figure it out.
I want to come back to your point about constantly learning. And I want to put it in the context of today's topic, the impact of leadership in sales success. What can leaders do? What should leaders be doing to facilitate that learning amongst their sales team?
It could be something as simple as having lunch and learns, book clubs that allow people the expenses to buy books, to enroll in programs. We were talking before the show a little bit about getting more women into sales, which is a passion of mine. And there are programs like Girls Club that Lord Bailey runs that are hugely successful at teaching, in this case, women and their male mentors that are involved in it too, to be stronger leaders and to get into leadership. And they've had great success rates with the people who have gone through the program in becoming leaders at companies, which is, increasing revenues for the companies. So be open-minded and be a big picture thinker in terms of what's going to help us and help our company grow. And then invite the reps to participate in things like that.
Yeah, I just don't get it. So, as a founder of the Institute of Sales Professionals, we worked with EY 10 years ago and proved that teams that were inclusive and diverse were 7% more profitable than those that are not. A year, 2 years ago, and I still think there's a talent shortage in sales. We still don't look at really talented females and bring them back into the workplace and accept that with hybrid working, we now have a brilliant way to accommodate their skills and success. And I saw some data from exactly at a recent conference I was presenting with them, and they've got like 2.5 million points about compensation, and they've figured out that the most loyal and the most productive teams are led by females. And we still do not a lot about it. And I don't get it, Laurie. Why? What is it? Is it just addictive thinking by very senior men, or?
Well, it's a lot of things, and I don't think we have the time to cover them all today. But I'd love to do a follow-up conversation. In fact, I wrote a book about it, about attracting, promoting, and retaining women in sales. Women are underrepresented at every level in most every industry in sales. Sales is like one of the worst, second to the bottom in terms of having women and diversity and inclusion of all types. And so I would simply say that the numbers there are great numbers, like you're saying, Andy, that show the value of having inclusive sales teams. They should represent who our buyers are at the very least. Our buyers are inclusive. And so I just think there's a lot in place that's been around for a long time, and a lot of people don't really want to change things because they worked for a long time. Plus,
I think they're scared though as well, aren't they?
Pardon?
I think senior men are scared as well. So
Petrified.
I know a number of women, some of whom are my sort of age, some are young, who work in sales, and every single one of them is 150% of target. Every single one. And I think guys look at them and they go, well, I'd succeed if I was a woman, because it's easier to get meetings, it's easier to open doors. And I think they're genuinely scared in many cases.
And what's so
not
funny?
Scared, that's bigotry. That's wrong. That's not scared. That's bigotry.
Absolutely. But I think the thing that's driving it is not misogyny, although there's a huge amount of that as well. I think it is fear that they will be outperformed by women.
I think we've missed. To Laurie's point, we missed the change in buyers by about 1,000 miles. Yeah.
People have lost deals now because their sales team was not diversified. I've actually heard that on multiple occasions, that we want to work with a diverse, inclusive team, and yours wasn't. So we went with the other company because we felt that the offers were similar or equal. So, but there's a lot to it. There's definitely a lot to talk about in that regard.
I used to work for EMC for 16 years, and we went for a meeting with Avon, and we took 5 men in, and there wasn't a single male in the buying group for the CEO, and she just went, "What's wrong with this picture?" And that was like 10 years ago. Well, and to reinforce your point, I presented at a big conference in the UK last week, and I put up professional images of other people that I Googled. 80% of them were women. That's what Google threw up. Here's a lawyer, here's an engineer, here's a pilot, first picture, female. And it's like, we've missed it as sales.
People still talk about used car salesmen and, the movies that have the bad sales. And, women ourselves have not heard that sales is an admirable profession. So women need more female role models that are public, that are on platforms, that are speaking on the main stage, not in the breakout room. And also, just to know that, there are programs now in the US. There are over 200 sales programs where you can get a major or minor. You can even get a PhD in sales now. And I don't know if you
I'm
knew
doing
that,
one.
but when women see that, because we want certifications, that's why so many women are marketing, because they got their marketing degree. And women more than men want to say, I've earned this, I know this stuff. And that goes back to how we were raised, and lack of speaking out, and a whole bunch of things.
You are 2000% right. A big telco company said to me the other day, "I'm losing young female graduates to another big IT company because they're doing a certified program for young salespeople. I'm losing all of my females."
Yeah,
Lori,
we
to
want
your point,
certifications.
this is a topic much bigger than this session could encompass. So we absolutely will have you back and explore that topic. And as we were talking about beforehand, remains to be seen how we'll handle that, but it's definitely something of interest here at Sales TV. Show us one more time that book. Book is She Sells.
Yep.
Okay.
It's on Amazon.
Excellent. Lori, this has been great. How can people learn more about you? Where can they get in touch with you?
I'm all over the internet at Score More Sales. On LinkedIn, reach out, mention this podcast, this show, and I'll connect with you quicker, because I have a few hundred people waiting to connect with me right now. So
Awesome.
That's the best way, is LinkedIn.
Sounds good. Thank you again, Lori. This has been another edition of Sales TV Live. To our audience, on behalf of our guest and everyone at Sales TV Live, thank you for being an active part in today's conversation. Lori, thank you so much for joining us, and have a good day.
Awesome. Lori, brilliant.
My pleasure.
Spot on. Thank